welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to talk about The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. So this is the original tale. I read it in ebook form. You can find it everywhere. You can even find it free on the Project Gutenberg, which I'll probably end up linking for this one. So in the original tale, it starts off with you have the Little Mermaid. She is not named. She's never given a name. She is the youngest daughter of a widowed father. Her grandmother rules everything. There's a lot of descriptions. They live out in the middle of the ocean. Her hair color isn't described either. But on their 15th birthday, the daughters, basically, it's a coming-of-age ritual. They're allowed to go to the surface. And all of her sisters do this before her. And the youngest is very quiet. She doesn't really care much for the gathering of things from sunken ships. This is mentioned. She does have a statue in the garden where she grows things. But she's anxious to see the surface. So her sisters go up. They each describe a variety of different things. At night, sometimes they rise together and look at the stars. But then it is finally the Little Mermaid's turn. Her grandmother decks her out. And she goes up and she sees a ship where the wind is calm, and she peeks in the window. And she sees the prince, and she falls in love. And they're celebrating his 16th birthday. So then a storm comes. He falls into the water. The ship is destroyed. She rescues him and brings him to the beach, where he's met by a lovely princess, because she can't be seen. Because her grandmother has told her that the human world finds her tale ugly. So she goes back into the ocean, and she's very, very sad. She stops tending her garden. She spends a lot of time with the statue who resembles her prince. And eventually she tells one of her sisters, and her sister shows her to where the prince's palace is. And then she goes and talks to her grandmother. Her grandmother explains why mermaids can live up to 100 to 300 years. When they die, they turn into sea foam because they have no souls. And in order for a mermaid to get a soul, she has to convince a prince to forsake his mother and father and marry her, and a part of his soul will go into her, and she will have that is how she would attain a soul. And then she would rise up to the land beyond the stars. So the little princess now wants a soul, or the Little Mermaid now wants a soul. And so in order to get the soul, she has to get the prince to fall in love with her. So she goes to the Sea Witch, and the Sea Witch is like, yeah, I know what you want. It's a bad idea, but I know what you want. And you came at the right time, because otherwise you'd have to wait another year. But here's the thing. You will get legs, but you'll be walking on, basically will cause you great pain. You'll feel like knives are throwing into them. You'll still be very, very graceful, but every step is painful. It will be excruciatingly painful. And if you cannot, the moment the prince marries another, the next sunrise, you turn into sea foam. So if he does not marry her. And as a price, she has to sacrifice her voice. So she does this. She goes. The prince brings her in. He allows her to sleep at his doorway. He gets her clothing. They watch slaves entertain him and his parents. Yeah, that's mentioned. But eventually his family, his parents insist he go meet this other princess, and he doesn't know if he wants to marry her because she's not the one who rescued him. But he meets her. He falls in love. They get married. And the Little Mermaid dances even though she knows this is her last night and she'll see her last sunrise. So this happens. Her sisters show up. They've cut off their hair. They say, here's this dagger. Grandmother's hair is falling out because she misses you. But if you kill the prince, the blood will splash on your feet, will fuse it back together, and you'll be turned back into a mermaid, and you'll live 300 years and then die and turn into sea foam. So Little Mermaid goes to do this, but she can't. And she throws the dagger into the sea and dives in. But she doesn't feel like she turns into sea foam. Instead, she becomes a daughter of the air. And after 300 years, she can win a soul by doing good deeds. However, every time they can lose a day off their 300-year sentence by finding very good children, and they gain one if they end up finding bad children. So there's that. And she is invisible, she kisses the prince's bride, and goes up into the sky. So that is how the story ends. Now, I've heard that in the original tale she just dies. But Hans Christian Andersen added a slightly happier tale to the end of this very interesting fairy tale. So that is the original fairy tale. So either she dies or she spends the next 300 years having to do good deeds, and if she finds naughty children, they add to it. Yeah, it's an interesting tale. I prefer the Disney version. This is very weird. There's a lot of talk that this is connected to the fact that Hans Christian Andersen was in love with another man and he was rejected. And this was how he felt. And again, he was a very Christian Dutch gentleman who was also known to be very, very weird. So very, very, very weird. And this story is very interesting. It's really detailed. I mean, there's a lot of world building for Under the Sea, but there's a lot of, you're a mermaid, you have no soul. And that is why the Little Mermaid wants to marry the prince. It's not necessarily because she's completely in love with him. She wants an immortal soul. So, it's interesting. I would not read this to small children, really. I mean, you can. But again, she's supposed to murder the prince, and she's walking on knives. And in great pain. So it's not a happy tale. It's not a happy tale at all. It's a very, very bizarre tale. The dying thing makes it slightly less bizarre, but the detail of the Daughters of the Air and the fact that they can lose a day by finding good, happy children and gain a day by finding if they end up finding naughty children. It's weird. It's just a little weird. I mean, this is great if you're studying Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, if you're looking at fairy tales of the past. This was meant for children. But again, you also have to remember that certain Christian factions do not believe the animals, which is what they would consider mermaids, do not have souls. So only humans have souls, and mermaids are not human. So nonetheless, it is an interesting, slightly bizarre tale. So that is really it for this. And again, there's a variety of versions with all sorts of illustrations. I just happened to read this on Hoopla, which is a free site through my library, and wanted to get this done. You guys will be seeing this in April. And yes, I will be reviewing the Disney animation, the live-action Disney animation, the direct-to-video sequel of the Disney animation, and even slightly more bizarre, the Shelley Duvall's fairy tale theater version. That should be interesting. You can check out my, yes, we'll be doing a lot of the Shelley Duvall things. They're very, very 80s, but I've already done the Snow Queen, and it's interesting. It's, again, it's very, very 80s. It's very, very 80s, and it's done for television, and it's live action, and it's interesting. It will be interesting to see what they do with The Little Mermaid. So, if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. I am doing Disney Princesses here in 2025, so you're welcome to join me or check out the rest of my videos. I have quite a few. I have already covered Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast in previous years. I am going to be going back to Cinderella this year, and I've already covered for 2025 the Frozen, that's the Snow Queen. I covered Brave last month, and I did the Lion King because I've already previously covered Princess and the Frog. So you can check out those videos. But I will see you next time. Thank you.